SCP-0913, The Gospel According to Silence. Part 1. The Words That Spoke Without Sound. The small chapel stood like a carcass on the edge of the French countryside, its stone bones blackened by fire, its wooden ribs caved inward by time. Locals avoided the ruins. Some said you could hear weeping at night. Others swore they'd seen shadows kneeling where pews once stood. No one dared to step inside. No one except the Foundation. Agent Marceau had been tracking a series of disappearances in the nearby villages. 6 people gone without a trace. All religious practitioners, all last seen near this forgotten chapel. The only clue left behind, a patch of human skin nailed to the church door with words scorched into the flesh. His silence is the covenant. The team entered with flashlights and respirators. Dust danced like ghosts in the pale beams. The altar was shattered, but something was buried beneath it. A stone slab, old, engraved, smeared with something that looked too red to be centuries old. Beneath the slab, they found it. A book, bound in leather that pulsed when touched. Its cover bore no title, only a crude symbol, a mouth sewn shut with barbed wire. The air grew heavier the moment it was uncovered. Agent Marceau said he heard whispering, not in his ears, in his skull, like someone was speaking from inside his own head, just beyond language, beyond meaning. Dr. Eloise, the team's linguist, opened the first page. The symbols were unlike any known language, crooked, spiral-like glyphs that seemed to shift when looked at. She said nothing, just stared, then bled from her nose, then her ears. Then she smiled and said nothing. She never spoke again. Part 2. The Apostle Emerges. The book was transported to Site 43 under maximum containment protocols. It was kept in a triple-sealed chamber, behind soundproofed walls, under 24-hour surveillance. But something was wrong from the beginning. Cameras started glitching whenever they focused on the object, not flickering, writhing, as if the pixels themselves were rejecting the image. Any audio recordings near the chamber came back corrupted, filled with static, or worse. Silence punctuated by wet, clicking noises. Dr. Eloise, still mute, began to change. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent. Her eyes remained locked open, even during sleep. She would write obsessively on the walls of her quarters, not words, but symbols identical to the ones in the book. When asked why, she simply pointed at her mouth and shook her head. Then came the night she disappeared. Security footage showed her standing completely still for 6 hours. At exactly 3:33 a.m., she turned, walked to the wall, and pressed her palm flat against it. Without warning, the stone melted around her hand, like flesh yielding to flame. She walked through the wall as if it were made of water. She left behind a single phrase, etched into her bedframe in her own blood. I hear him now. In the days that followed, several personnel began exhibiting symptoms: sore throats, loss of voice, involuntary writing in unknown scripts. One researcher attempted suicide by ripping out their own tongue. Another tried to carve symbols into their chest, mumbling about the word that devours itself. Site 43 was locked down, but it was already too late. Part 3. Sermons in Flesh. 2 weeks after the lockdown, Site 43 was unrecognizable. Rooms once sterile and white were now smeared with strange black ichor. Hallways echoed with murmurs, not in English, not in any human language. But the tones, they felt like sermons, twisted, reverent, wrong. The book had not moved. It remained motionless, untouched, yet its pages were turning on their own. One by one, personnel began calling it the Gospel. They spoke of it as a divine text, not with reverence, but with fearful obedience. Security guards were found kneeling before the containment chamber, heads bowed, murmuring prayers in hoarse, bleating voices. Anyone who tried to stop them either vanished or ended up stitched to the walls, literally, with surgical thread through their lips and skin, fashioned into grotesque icons of worship. Dr. Harlan, the acting site director, ordered the destruction of the book. A D-class personnel was selected. He entered the chamber with a flamethrower. He never made it out. Security footage showed him standing before the book, trembling. Then calmly, he began tearing his own face off, peeling the skin with his bare hands, piece by piece, while whispering the same 3 words. It rewrites truth. What followed was worse. The flames he ignited turned cold. The fire crawled across the floor like fog, extinguishing light and freezing glass into crystal spines. But book remained unburned. When the chamber was reopened, the D-class was gone. In his place, a single page from the book fluttered on the ground, freshly inked with something red and warm. It read, "In the beginning was silence, and silence was not empty." Part 4. The Prophet with No Eyes. It was Agent Monroe who first encountered the Prophet. She had been patrolling Sector D when she heard the chanting. Not in any recognizable dialect, but rhythmic, like a sermon whispered in reverse. The voice echoed through the corridor, but the cameras showed nothing. Until 02:14 a.m., a man stepped into view. No clearance, no ID, no face. His eyes had been gouged out, sockets stitched shut with thorns. His mouth was sewn too. Yet the chanting grew louder when he appeared. He wore tattered robes sewn from lab coats, bloodied and inscribed with verses that pulsed as if alive. He called himself the mouth of the gospel. Where he stepped, the lights flickered and bled. Flesh peeled from the walls like old paint, and the book, SCP-0913, began to glow. Dr. Harlan, now barely holding on to sanity, ordered an elite task force to subdue the figure. They used stun rounds, sonic weapons, and cryogenic gas. He walked through it. Each agent that aimed a weapon at him dropped dead in silence, their eyes liquefied, ears bleeding, and tongues replaced by pages of the gospel, pages that burned as they hit the floor. It was as if reality itself refused to witness him. Then he spoke, not with his mouth, but with every wall, every device, every person nearby. A voice poured from every throat. The Word was made flesh. Now the flesh becomes Word. And suddenly, Agent Monroe was alone. Everyone else in the hallway had vanished, leaving behind only clothing, blood, and teeth. She would later be found in the surveillance room, eyes wide open, scribbling the gospel onto the walls with her own hair soaked in ink. Part 5. The Final Scripture. When they finally entered Observation Room Delta, the gospel was gone. Only ashes remained where the tome had once rested, glowing with faint embers, shaped vaguely like an open mouth. Surveillance footage from within the sealed room had been corrupted, static layered with whispers that, when played backward, matched the ancient liturgical chants of pre-Abrahamic cults, some of which had never been translated. Dr. Harlan, missing for 48 hours, was located inside the sub-basement, level 6, a level not known to even exist in Site-13 schematics. He was found kneeling in front of a massive wall carved entirely from human teeth, arranged like braille. He was smiling. "The gospel isn't written in ink," he said softly. "It is written in suffering." The wall responded by bleeding. Dr. Harlan's final act was to gouge his own eyes, slice off his lips, and whisper one last message, this time not in Latin nor Enochian, but something new, something recursive, as if the language was folding in on itself. It echoed across the site for 6 minutes. Then, silence. After that event, Site-13 became non-functional. Staff either vanished or were found wandering, repeating verses that did not exist in any known religious text. Those exposed to SCP-0913's final whisper began transcribing scripture in their sleep onto walls, skin, or the insides of others. The Foundation quarantined the area indefinitely. All remaining data on SCP-0913 was fragmented, overwritten by symbols not found in any earthly language, except for one final entry in the terminal. "The gospel has been delivered. Prepare the choir." And with that, a new file auto-generated in the system, SCP-0914. Redacted. The gospel continues.